Hello, community, and welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast, where we discuss leadership, influence, and culture in ways to help you show up and stand out. This month, we are focusing on laboring for justice as a labor of love in honor of Labor Day that just passed. And I have with me a very dear and special guest, Dr. Mayra Austin, founder and CEO of Management Cues, where she combines management training with neuroscience to make sure that training sticks and change happens. Dr. Mayra, welcome back for our third and final conversation. I'm so glad that you're with us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. We've just been on a roll with these topics, have been amazing.
We have been, and they have been amazing because you've been bringing us some amazing insights and community. Just as a reminder, we're focusing on DEI and the regulatory changes that are out there. In our first conversation around leadership, Dr. Mayra encouraged us to be clear about the distinctions of what we can and cannot do. In our last conversation, we talked about inclusive influence and how it's important to make sure that that is playing at every level of the organization. And in this conversation, Dr. Mayra, we're going to talk about culture. So take it away. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is a unique perspective or not, but I'll share how I see culture. Again, having a background in operations, having scaled the workforce from the most entry-level job that you can think of to all the way to the top, to chief operations officer and CEO, right? So for me, I have seen, and I've seen it observed and interpreted culture, right? Culture, workplace culture as something that's soft and mushy. And to be quite honest, I've never been that soft and mushy myself. So I always like to tie to outcomes and output, which is probably why I've done well in the operations space. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to share with your audience, Dr. Anita, is it's not soft and mushy. That's what I have found out over the last 2 decades. It's actually incredibly strategic. And if I can be a bit transactional right now, because it's natural to me to see things from a transactional perspective. For me, that's where the bottom line was found. Mm-hmm. And I made it a point to design KPIs to align output and impact, to teach and train managers along the way who wanted to succeed to make that connection as well, so that it wasn't superficial. It wasn't about bringing pizza. It wasn't about giving awards or acknowledgments without customization or personalization, which is what a lot of people do. I've seen it. I've been in those environments where I have had to shift that. So now, as a professor, as an executive, as somebody who has a proven methodology out there, I can share that some of the things that I have found to be incredibly interesting is some of the well-founded peer-reviewed research that's out there that shows us, in the Financial Times, there was a groundbreaking study of 1,600 publicly listed U.S. companies who found that the happier the employees were, they achieved, higher firm valuations. Mm-hmm. They had a higher return on assets and gross profits. They had stronger stock market performance, right? So the correlation there is what needs to be understood, right? And for those professionals out there who don't care about how people feel, they just want to hit that goal. Hey, I get it. I'm that way too. What I realized is that goal doesn't get hit if they don't feel a certain kind of way. And so not making that connection, that's an absence of not only efficiency, but you're not mitigating your risk, which ultimately costs you double. And that happens time and time again. As an operator, I've seen it across every single company I've ever worked at. And the other thing too is, when you're looking at your returns, do you really understand where your returns are coming from? Because one thing that for me has stood out time after time, and I work a lot in the startup space, so we have a harsh and quick learning curve in the startup space, but it's also fun and challenging. But one thing that I've learned is people don't always understand what they're leaving on the table because they're always focused on the bottom line and where they know it's coming from.
Yes.
Until it gets challenged and tested. And so I have found that very small changes lend to big financial impact, right? And so I think your podcast this time around on the points we're touching on is testament to that.
Mm-hmm. When I think about what you're saying in terms of the way I relate the message, I try to remind executives that regardless of the color of the person whose at the pocket the money's coming out of, all money's green. And if you want to, increase your market share, you might want to consider the community in which your business operates, what that population mix looks like, and making sure that there's representation in your company so that they can then turn around and relate to the people in the marketplace. So it's cyclical. And to your point, unless people feel good about coming to work, they're not necessarily going to speak well of it. If they're not going to speak well of it, that reputation gets out in the community. And communities stay loyal by and large. How many times have we heard, well, my grandmother used this brand to bake cookies and she won't use anything else? Well, you messed that up and you've done a job on yourself. And to be current, let's look at Cracker Barrel. I mean, from what I have read, they tried to, fix something that wasn't broke. And now they're actually saying that they're going to go back to the old logo. However, I read a piece that said they are just as committed to diversity and inclusion as they ever have been. So all of your points are well taken. Dr. Mayra, thank you for helping me in this special series about DEI, the regulatory constraints that we think are on businesses, and helping us think about the distinctions, helping us remember that inclusive behaviors need to be demonstrated through our values from the top throughout the organization. And then finally, talking about culture, not as a mushy thing, but that is something that is critical to bottom line results. Do you want to leave us with one last nugget real quick?
I'll copy a nugget from my good friend and colleague, Danielle Navamijares.
Yes, love Danielle.
She always tells me, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not something we do. It's who we are.
That's right.
So I would leave professionals and businesses out there with the understanding that you need to be clear on who you are.
Yes.
And not so much on who you want to be in front of the audience, because at the end of the day, it won't pass the test.
That's right.
We've seen it with Target. We've seen it with Crackle Barrel. We have all of these case studies because guess who's actually there doing the work? It's sometimes just that simple.
Yeah. Dr. Mayra, you couldn't have summed that up better. And community, here is your Dr. Anita's post-podcast prescription. Remember, you have a choice to either stop doing something, start doing something, do more of something, or do less of something to actually apply what we've learned today. And your post-podcast prescription is this: stop sending mixed messages about the company's values by not living them. We have to get the company values out of the walls and into the halls. And with that, community, I'm going to ask of you, our community is a learning community. So I want you to stay in the flow with me, follow, like, and overshare with your own comments any prescription, any podcast that helps you to focus on your leadership, your inclusive influence, and culture building. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.